So it seems like everybody that comes by the shop wants to talk about two things when they get here. One, the CNC equipment that we use to build the parts, or two, powder coating. And it seems like powder coating gets brought up way more than anything else. Everybody wants to know, can they do it, how expensive it is, and then why do some powder coating jobs look better than others? I'm the kind of person that believes if I can do it, anybody can do it. You just need somebody to give you a little bit of guidance before you get started, and then you're set. And it's really not that expensive to do. For the average person that wants to do maybe some small parts, valve covers, intakes, oil pans, Fuller parts, go-kart parts, something like that, you can get by with a household oven and a Harbor Freight powder coating gun. The number one rule to remember when doing that setup is don't use the oven in your house. When you powder coat something, it puts like a liner inside the oven, the chemical. And if you throw a pizza in there the next day, all them chemicals are floating around in there and you're going to get really sick and it's not going to be good. So if you go with that setup, look on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, talk to your grandma, find somebody with an old oven and go with that. And you can take an old oven that's not working, throw you a couple elements in there and make it work. So it's a really cheap setup, but just remember, don't use the oven in your house. For somebody that maybe wants to do it as a side hustle or start a full-fledged company out of it, it can get pretty expensive. We have quite a bit of money in our setup and we're actually expanding at the moment, because at the moment our oven and where we spray at is inside the shop that we work in a lot, and we're building a complete separate section of the shop out back, and it's going to have a spray booth with the filter station, and then we're going to have a spot with the wall separating them with the oven, and we're going to build a bigger oven so we can get into doing some bigger parts. Our current oven size is 3 foot by 3 foot by 6 foot. I built that oven myself. I possibly may even do a video on building ovens, because it can save you a lot of money. An oven that size would run like $7,000 or $8,000, I believe. I want to say we have about $2,000 in ours. We built our control box and we saved a lot of money on that. Control box will run you about $500 to $600, depending on like what size box you get and how many elements you want to run. We run 4 elements in ours. It heats up really, really fast, and we kind of do production style stuff. So I wanted something that was really, really fast. You can get a cheaper box if you only run like 2 elements. And it will save you a little bit of money if you've got the time to wait on it. So why do some parts look better than others? And it all comes down to prep work. It's just like painting something. If you spend 5 minutes getting it ready to paint or powder coat, it's not going to look as good as if you spend an hour on it. And we have some intakes off our 7.3 project truck that we're building. It's going to be our little tow rig or play truck or whatever you want to call it. And they were painted black and covered in oil and grease and everything else. I'm pretty sure that truck's been leaking oil since '95 when it rolled off the showroom floor. So we took it to the sandblaster, threw it in a little cabinet blaster that we have, and cleaned it up real good. Now we're going to take it outside and we're going to degrease it. And I don't know, it's like midnight or maybe even be 1 o'clock now. So I can't really see that great outside. We're going to bring it back inside, check it out. If it looks good, we're going to throw it in the oven and preheat it. And this is, from what I can tell, a lot of shops miss. They don't preheat parts. And the reason you want to preheat it is if the degreaser misses something, most of the time, the preheat will bake it off. It gets the part to temperature, any little bit of oil or grease or fingerprints, the degreaser misses, most of the time it'll bake it right on off. When you pull your part out, it's already hot. So when you spray your powder, it will go ahead and not only stick to it, but it will go ahead and start the chemical reaction to cure. And you actually will use less powder in the long run if you preheat. It's kind of crazy. If you don't preheat, it will stick to it because it's a static charge that draws the powder to the metal parts. But some of that powder will not stick and fall off. There's a ton of settings. We'll go over that in a minute. But depending on your settings and how you have stuff set up, it may even not even stick to certain areas, depending on your KV setting and your flow rate and all that stuff. But if your part's preheated, as soon as that powder hits it, it's stuck. That it has no choice. It's hot. It has to stick to it. It starts the chemical reaction to go ahead and cure, and it's stuck to it, and it starts baking right off the bat. Most places only recommend you preheat to 150 degrees if you actually start reading on it a lot. I preheat everything to 400 degrees. If the powder bakes for 10 minutes at 400 degrees, I preheat at 400 degrees. And the reason I do that is because when I pull it out of the oven, most of the time I can't spray it that second. So it will actually hang out for maybe a minute while I'm running around getting everything set up, ready to spray. So I know the temperature is steadily falling, especially right now. It's kind of winter time. We get cold nights. I do a lot of my powder coating at night, just for the fact that we clean the shop right at the end of the day. So the shop's real clean. And when you powder coat something that's actually charged, you have a ground that either hooks to your part or a station of some sort that you're hanging this off of. And when you spray it, it's a static charge that draws it to it. So if there's a lot of dust in the air or stuff on your roof, or like we don't have our ceiling completely done, so this is just insulation up there at the moment. If there's a lot of stuff up there, I hit my gun, especially if my KV setting's real high and it's got a lot of charge, it will pull stuff out of the air down to your part, and it can get really trashy. So at the end of the day, we take a big blower, we blow everything out, make sure it's real clean, and that's the main reason we do a lot of powder coating at night. The next big thing that you'll want to look out for is flow rate and your KV setting. And we'll go over here and look at the gun we got at the moment. I'll kind of go over that a little bit, but do a lot of research and just a lot of R&D, because every gun's going to spray different. Every powder sprays different. The red that we use a lot of, it comes out fast. It comes out heavy. It's real thin. The black that we use a lot of is kind of thick. It comes out slow. You can actually go real slow spraying the part. Use the same air pressure, the same flow rate, same everything. The powders just spray different. Most metallic parts, most clear coats, most stuff like that sprays really heavy, really fast. So spray you a test part before you just go spraying something for somebody else or your own parts, because it can mess up. It's not like paint, it won't run, but trust me, you can get runs in it. I had a guy we were trying to teach one time, and we were doing these really small warning plates that we cut a lot of, and we were doing red, and this is the first time I ever seen powder coat have a run in it, but he put enough on there that when it baked, it was so heavy that the powder just started running down. It actually had a drip off the end of it about that long. It was crazy. First time I ever seen it. So you can get a run in powder coat. So do you some test parts, figure out your flow rate, figure out your KV setting. Your KV setting is basically the static charge to the part. The higher it is, the more charge, the lower it is, the less charge. So if you've got a really tight area that you're trying to get your gun up into, you're going to want a lower setting. If you're something like this, that you can just stick away and just spray the whole thing and you don't have to worry about nothing, a decent higher setting, 50, 60 is most of the time what I'll use. But once again, do your own R&D, check out your gun. Your gun's possibly different. Your cheaper guns either have high and low. There's no actual settings on it. So if you get a Harbor Freight gun, a Eastwood, or one off of Amazon or eBay, most of the time it's high or low. You don't have an option as far as fine tuning. Our gun will actually let us fine tune, just the knob will turn all the way around from 0 to 100, I believe. If you get into a part that has a tight area like this, if you don't preheat, or say you preheat and a part had to hang out for 5 minutes and it's kind of cold, but you're going to spray it anyways. There's nothing wrong with that. But if it doesn't want to stick in these areas, you're going to want to turn your KV setting down lower and then come back to it and then respray it. Powder coat is also flammable to an extent. It will blow up if you have a box of some sort or a tank, something that you're trying to spray, and you're spraying the inside of that tank. If something happens in the end of your gun, especially these cheaper guns that have the little tip exposed, your little wire is actually exposed, if you get down inside of there and you touch your metal and it makes a spark, and there is a lot of fumes in there, a lot of powder floating around, it will pop, it will boom. Trust me, I've seen it done before. I've only seen it done once, but I've seen it done before. And it's just one quick boom. It's not going to blow your part to pieces or nothing like that. It's a small boom, but it is flammable. So if you've got kids and stuff, definitely watch out. It's something that could be a really big issue if you had a really small shop and it was just completely full of powder floating in the air. It could be boom, 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 boom real fast. Like I say, I've only seen it happen once, but I've seen it happen. It did blow a box up, but it didn't blow the box apart. It just went poop, and blew the box off the hanger. So nothing major, but just something to watch for. So I'm gonna go outside and degrease this. We'll take a look at the equipment that we have, kind of go over what we have, and then we'll see how this part comes out. So we got our parts in the oven, waiting on them to heat up, and I thought about a couple more tips I want to go over real fast. So once you get your parts ready to spray, you have to hang it on something metal to get it ground. Now you can go to Prismatic Powder, Powder by the Pound, Columbia Coating, eBay, Amazon, anywhere that sells powder coating stuff, and get a hook or hanger or something to put it on. But that's not your cheapest option. My personal opinion for your cheapest option is to go down to your local weld and supply shop, get you some stainless steel TIG wire, bend you some hooks like this, and you're set. You use them till you can't clean them no more, or you lose them or whatever, you throw them away and build you another one, start over. It's the cheapest option you can do. Now the one downside to preheating your parts is if you preheat to 400 degrees and you spray a color like red or like a candy color or metallic or a lot of clear coats that come out really, really heavy, when you do your first coat, if it's preheated, it's going to start the baking process and it's going to look really thin, like you don't have enough on it. So your natural instinct is to put more on it, and that's the wrong thing to do. You need to give it a second to see exactly how much is on it. I recommend getting you a little LED flashlight, do you a coat, a nice good even coat all the way around, take your flashlight, go over it and see if you have any spots that's not heavy enough or not coated all the way, and then you fill in those spots. The downside to, if you do get too much on there and it's preheated, you can't take an air hose and blow it off. So that is the one drawback to preheating your parts and spraying them directly out of the oven. If you don't if you preheat your parts and let it cool completely down, you can spray it, and if you have too much, you take an air hose, blow it off, start over. That's kind of the whole point of powder coating, is it's kind of a foolproof way of doing it. It's not like painting where once you spray it on there, there's no going back. Now, if you preheat and you spray it on there, there is no going back. You're not getting by with that. So think about that before you actually decide to preheat your part and spray it right out of the oven. Make sure you're committed and you're confident in the skill that you've learned to do that, and you don't need a reset button. And the last thing you want to remember is do your research on the powder before you order it. Every powder could possibly have something different about it than the last that you ordered. Some candy colors require a certain base coat to go down before the candy coat can go down. Some require a special clear coat. Some require both. There's all kind of scenarios that can go crazy to make the color not come out the way you see it on the computer. I know when I first started out, I'd see a color and be like, man, that's a sick color. I've got to get that. I've got to put it on that part. And I wouldn't read that it needed this chrome base coat or this silver base coat or this clear coat or, baked at a different temperature, and it just wouldn't come out the way it was supposed to come out. And you'd have to strip the part and start over. So save yourself a lot of time and a lot of headache in the beginning and just go ahead and read everything about that color before you can order it. And you should be in a pretty good spot to get going if you do all that. So I hear the oven keep clicking on and off. So I'm about to go over here and check it. I think we got a couple more minutes. I'm gonna pull the intake out and they get a clear coat, and the headlight brackets I'm doing, they don't get a clear coat. So I'm gonna go over here and check these out, and then we'll shoot a video once we get them clear. So just pulled it out of the oven. Looks like everything came out pretty good. Got a nice even coat. Clear coat came out good. Got nice glitter to it. Got a nice little shine. Should look pretty good on the motor once we get it bolted up. That's about all there is to it. Just remember, do your research on whatever powder you order. Make sure you get whatever they recommend as far as a clear coat or base coat if is needed. And if you start doing this on the side as a side hustle, take into account the amount of hours that you're going to have into a part to get a good finish on it. The amount of time you'll have sandblasting, prepping, cleaning, preheating. Just in this part, just in these two intakes alone, there's at least an hour and a half worth of work in there between sandblasting, cleaning, preheating, and spraying, and the whole nine. So if you start doing it as a side hustle or trying to start a business, just make sure you take into account the amount of time you're going to have in prep work. And that's about it. So until next time.